Alright guys, I got some updates for you. After I got the clutch pedal all done and figured out, I ended up moving the bulkhead line for the rear brake that used to come through here up over to here, just out of the way of everything, a lot cleaner. It'll be behind the kick panel here. So all I did was just shorten this line up and rebend it after I put that bulkhead there. And then on the underside here, I don't know if you can see, but I just bent the chassis hard line this way, bent it up, got a bulkhead unit in here, welded on just a little tabber, and built a little line to go up to the top there. I also got the lines done for the hydraulic throwout bearings. So you can see back behind there I have another bulkhead fitting with the 90 for the feed line to it. So happy with how that turned out. I got the alternator that I'm running here, a nice 150 amp guy. Got that mounted, and the wire run down underneath the engine along the cross member here, up over the other side, connected it to the starter, and got the battery cable for the starter, ran along the frame rail here to the back where the battery is going to be, which will be right underneath the passenger side of the rear seat. Added some P-clamps just to kind of clean up the installation of the brakes off line, so I'm starting to just get all the nitpicky little details done. Here you can see the throttle cable here. Remember I showed you I welded this guy in. Nice cute little throttle cable here. It connects up to the linkages, and I'm going to have to run a return spring, which I've had one just temporarily set up, and the feel of the throttle pedal feels really good. And it opens the carburetors fully, which was the one thing I was a little concerned about. So that's perfect there. But the big thing I've been working on today is getting the front bench seat further along. So I stripped the backs off of here. They're just sitting right here. They're really easy to take off, actually. There's just these two little metal tabs that you unbend, and then the top clips in here, and you just kind of wiggle the cushion off and expose the backs. And then I strip back the fabric and some of the filling here a little bit because I needed to modify this area. So I went and I took the original seat pivot point off of the old cross member that I had cut out and cut that down so it fit right up in here. Added another new cross member across here. And these guys right here used to be welded onto the bottom and come out quite a bit further down and further forward. And so I cut these off. I used an oxyacetylene torch, heated them up, flattened them out the rest of the way because they were flat right here, and then they became round right there to meet up with that tube. So I flattened this down and cut some little notches in there to clear the rear bracket, and got these guys welded in place. And then the seat base, I had to cut the rod that goes between here that was running into here, and I just ran these guys forward to brace everything, and those are pretty much on line of this top piece here. So everything clears there. This is a factory deal right here, so the seat cushion, as you can tell, is cut out around that. And so we have a seat back that bends forward so people can get into the rear. I'm super happy with how that turned out. Now that that is done, I can go and reinstall all of the springs that we have and then modify the ones for the middle, hoggering this all back together. And then I can even get the padding and the fabric back on, get the seat backs back on, And then we'll have a fully functioning front bench seat, which would be super rad. I'll be able to put it in the car and be able to sit in the car, make any adjustments to the pedals, because once you're sitting down, the pedals are gonna feel a little bit different than, you know, just the height that I've put them at right there might not be ideal. So I can make any of those adjustments if need be. And also just sitting there with the steering wheel and kind of get a feel for everything else that's going on. So I'm super excited about this. I might have to make a couple little more modifications to the seat back. These little stubs right here where the drive shaft tunnel goes might be too low, so I might have to section about half of this tube off and then just weld in a plate right there. So I need to get the seat base back in the car after I get the sliders mounted up there. But this was big. I thought this was going to be way more of a task than it was, and I started overthinking things. I was trying to figure out some tricky little mechanism so that the pivot point was in line with the old pivot points and blah blah blah. And then I just thought to myself, well, maybe if this pivot point in the center here is higher and further back, maybe it actually doesn't matter. The seat backs don't have to tilt forward all that far to let someone into the rear. And so I was like, you know, let's just tack everything in place and see what the functionality is. And after I got tacked in place, it was clear that it's going to operate just fine like that. So really happy with how that solution came about. Real nice and simple here. So yeah, I'll get the seat back together, get that in the car, knock that, check that off the knock list, check that off the checklist there, and then I'm gonna keep jamming here. I want to start running some other wiring. I got the ride height sensors and the air system wiring that I kind of want to start laying out and figuring out. I was gonna get a start on the fuel system today, but I'm still waiting on a new flare tool that will make flaring the stainless hard lines I'm gonna do a little bit easier. And so I'll just start knocking off a bunch of the other stuff that I have on the list, which is getting smaller but is still pretty much never ending here. So I will check back in with you guys once I've made a little more progress. All right, I've been working on the seat here. I got the base and the seat backs in. This is all bolted down, so is this. You can see these guys pivot back enough to get into the back. Everything's nice and solid here. And the original fabric's in surprisingly good condition. The fabric for the base of the bench seat is not, although it's maybe somewhat usable. But I got all the springs back in here and tweaked on some of the base just to get it a little more square and better looking. And I had to weld in some extra support rods to hold the springs and everything, but the base is ready to go in. And then I'll just put like a moving blanket on top of it for now so I can sit on it. But that'll be a huge step in the project to be able to sit in the car for the first time. So I'm gonna get this seat base in the car and then we'll sit down and make some vroom noises. Check it out. All right, so this is a pretty big moment here. I have the bench seat in the car with the dash and the steering column, all of the pedals hooked up for the first time in the build. I just have a moving blanket on top of the bare springs here just to make the seat base easier to get in and out. So there will be extra padding and cushioning and everything to kind of raise this seat up a little bit. But I just wanted to sit in here and kind of feel the ergonomics of everything, see where the pedals land and the steering wheel and everything else. So everything feels pretty good. Steering wheel really feels kind of like a school bus or something. It's pretty high up and tilted back a bit more than a modern car, obviously, and it's super huge as far as its diameter, and that works well because I still have a manual steering rack up front, so you want that extra leverage to get those wheels turning at lower speeds. So all that feels really good. The pedals feel really good. They're all pretty close together, but there's not a lot of room to work there, so they're spaced nice and evenly. The only thing I'm seeing a little bit of a problem with maybe, and of course I have these big boots on. When I'm driving this, I'll probably have, you know, shoes on or whatever, but if I put my foot on the brake pedal too high up, I kind of rub the steering column here. So that's just something as I drive the car, I'll just kind of learn and get accustomed to, and then when I go to clutch in and get on the brakes, I'll just make sure that I grab the left side of the pedal here so that I'm not hitting the steering column with my foot. But I also, like I said, I think part of the problem is just I have these real big boots on right now. But all the pedals, everything feels really good, and I'm excited. This is a big motivational thing right here, just to be able to sit here and feel all the touch points and kind of pretend that I'm driving. And one of the next things I kind of want to do here is get the shifter in here now that everything is in place, and see if the shifter is going to work as is or if I'm going to need to modify the shift lever. The bottom part bolts to the transmission, and then there's a shift lever or handle that bolts to that, and that's from a truck. So I'm thinking that's going to put it a little bit too high up, but we'll see where that falls. I'm anticipating the need to modify that, which isn't a big deal. So I think next up what I'm going to do is get that bottom shift linkage part in here, and then get the top in here and see. The other thing I'm worried about is just the throw. Obviously you don't want it hitting the dash, so you won't be able to get in gear like first and third and fifth. So I may have to bend the lower part so that the throw of the shift is centered in the space that I have. There's the radio right here, and that should eventually I should have a functional radio. I have about 5 to choose from. I'm going to take 5 and kind of make one really good one. And so I want the shifter to not be too close to all those controls so that I can still use them. So let me get that shifter in here, and maybe we can actually get that completely finalized today, how we're going to do it. And we can check that off the list and keep jamming here. So pretty exciting moment.
So I get jumping right up and down. I get excited when I see a turd. Get to me and let me know what you need for turds.